James Cartlidge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A pleasure to follow the Honourable Lady, but instead of looking at the broader policy, I want to focus on a very specific constituency case, because although planning is generally the key responsibility of the planning authority, in my case, Bures District Council in South Suffolk, in this matter it is an issue for Parliament because it concerns a loophole around retrospective planning which has caused great distress to my constituents, Claire and James Fruin of the village of Bures St Mary. Now, Madam Speaker, I was councillor for Bures St Mary before I became the MP in 2015, and the last planning application that came before me, which I objected to, was an application to build 6 houses on a former slaughterhouse behind the Fruins' Grade 2 listed property on a very steep hill in the village of Bures. The real issue that has arisen is that as the development has gone on, it's become very clear that these properties, which are built just behind the back garden of my constituent, are far higher than they were given permission for. In fact, in January this year, the developer himself, Mr. Steve Dixon of the Steamer Group from Southend, confirmed that there was a height difference of at least 1.7 metres. My constituents then commissioned an independent survey from Randall Surveys LLP, who found that the height difference was in fact 2.6 metres. Madam Deputy Speaker, well, Mr. Speaker, 2.6 metres is a residential floor. That is a floor of an entire property. Imagine someone who's building a house behind your back garden where your family enjoy their time, and it is almost 3 metres taller than they were given planning permission for. And the key thing is this, that all we can do in this situation is the council request the developer to seek retrospective planning permission. It is true that in theory the council could put a stop notice on that development, but the problem there is that if the developer gets planning permission, they can sue for any damages resulting from that stop permission. So obviously the council is very reluctant to use it. But the real problem in this case is that the developer in question simply does not give a damn about my constituents. In fact, he's been extremely aggressive with them. He has trespassed on the property of the Fruins, and he's told Claire Fruin, and this was overheard by another constituent, if you had as much money as me, you wouldn't live around here. And he described the village as scum. Actually, the village of Bures is a very beautiful village on the Suffolk-Essex borders, and I don't know what this builder from Southend understands by beauty. But the point is, imagine being in their shoes. You have this development behind you that you didn't want. You have to accept it's been approved. It's built far higher than they were given permission before, and the builder just carries on building it. He ignores all of your concerns. He doesn't engage with the local community. He rides roughshod over them, and we in Parliament haven't given the district authority the right powers to deal with that, because they themselves can be liable to legal action. So, Mr. Speaker, what I would like to see is some kind of review of retrospective planning permission, so that where the developer is clearly causing detriment against the public interest, that a stop notice can be issued, which could be appealed against, but in the time of the appeal, development must be stopped. But that if the stop notice was upheld or even rejected, the builder would not have the right to then sue the council for damages because they had acted in the public interest. Because I have to say, this case has caused great dismay in Bures and across South Suffolk. The impression given is that the system is weighted so firmly in favour of the developer who cares not a jot for the constituents. I want to see a system which better represents my constituents, so that they are not subject to people who are riding roughshod over planning permission they've been legally given, but instead we have a system that is weighted fairly between both sides of the argument.
Emma Hardy.